Right. Judges
12.
12.
Yeah.
Then the men of Ephraim were summoned, and they crossed to Zaphon and said to Jephthah, "Why did you cross over to fight against the sons of Ammon without calling us to go with you? We will burn your house down on you." Jephthah said to them, "I and my people were at great strife with the sons of Ammon. When I called you, you did not deliver me from their hand. When I saw that you when I saw that you would not deliver me, I took my life in my hands and crossed over against the sons of Ammon, and the Lord gave them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me?" Then Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and fought Ephraim, and the men of Gilead defeated Ephraim, because they said, "You are fugitives of Ephraim, O Gileadites, in the midst of Ephraim and in the midst of Manasseh." The Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan opposite Ephraim, and it happened when any of the fugitives of Ephraim said, "Let me cross over," the men of Gilead would say to him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" If he said no, then they would say to him, "Say now, Shibboleth." But he said, "Shibboleth," for he could not pronounce it correctly. Oh, Sibboleth, instead of he didn't put the H.
Hmm.
Then they seized him and slew him at the fords of the Jordan. Thus there fell at that time 42,000 of Ephraim. Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in one of the cities of Gilead. Now Ibzan of Bethlehem judged Israel after him. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters, whom he gave in marriage outside the family. And he brought in 30 daughters from outside of his sons. And he judged Israel 7 years. Then Ibzan died and was buried in Bethlehem. Now Elon the Zebulunite judged Israel after him, and he judged Israel 10 years. Then Elon the Zebulunite died and was buried at Aijalon in the land of Zebulun. Now Abdon the son of Hillel the Pirathonite judged Israel after him. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons, who rode on 70 donkeys, and he judged Israel 8 years. Then Abdon the son of Hillel the Pirathonite died and was buried at Pirathon in the land of Ephraim, in the hill country of the Amalekites.
All right. Cool. So, a quick summary before we dive into deep. So, we're going to see that the men of the tribe of Ephraim, they were summoned to go meet Jephthah. An argument arose between the Ephraimites and Jephthah. Ephraim was upset that Jephthah had crossed over to their side to fight the Ammonites, but they did not call him to join in battle. Ephraim had threatened to burn Jephthah's house down, and then obviously war broke out between them. Jephthah ends up winning. Jephthah would judge Israel for 6 years, and then once he died, three new minor prophets will arise: Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon. So it's broken up into four sections. Verses 1 to 7 is Jephthah fights with Ephraim. Verses 8 to 10, Ibzan judges Israel. Verses 11 to 12, Elon judges Israel. And 13 to 15, Abdon judges Israel. I wanted to kind of show a map really quick. So, remember, here's where Ephraim's at. So Gilead, they're over here on the east side. This is Ephraim. So they crossed here. So somewhere here was the battle here.
Hmm.
And one of the last two judges are from Zebulun, which is up here. So right here, somewhere here, is the issue.
All right.
So, all right, let's get out of that. All right, verses 1-7. Go ahead and read again. Then the men of Ephraim went and summoned, and they crossed to Zephon and said to Japheth, "Why did you cross over to fight against the sons of Ammon, but did not call us to go with you? We will burn your house down on you." Then Japheth said to them, "I and my people were a great strife with the sons of Ammon, and I cried out to you, but you did not save me from their hands. And I saw that you wouldn't save me, so I took my life in my hands and crossed over against the sons of Ammon, and Yahweh gave them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me?" Then Japheth gathered all the men of Gilead and fought Ephraim, and the men of Gilead struck Ephraim down, because they said, "You are fugitives of Ephraim, O Gileadites, in the midst of Ephraim and in the midst of Manasseh." And the Gileadites captured the ford of the Jordan opposite Ephraim in it. And it happened when any of the fugitives of Ephraim said, "Let me cross over," the men of Gilead would say to them, "Are you an Ephraimite?" If they said no, then they would say to him, "Say now Shibboleth." But he said Sibboleth, but they could not pronounce it correctly. Then he seized him and slaughtered him at the fords of the Jordan. Thus there fell that time 42,000 Ephraimites. And Japheth judged Israel for 6 years. Then Japheth and the Gileadite died and was buried in one of those cities. So we see that after the victory that Japheth has with the Ammonites, the tribe Ephraim has crossed over to meet up with him. And I guess they were furious because Japheth supposedly didn't call them for help to go fight the Ammonites in their territory. Japheth had reminded them that he actually did reach out to them for help, but Japheth, they didn't respond back. They weren't willing to help. So Japheth had to take matters into his own hands, and with the help of God, they defeated the Ammonites. So Ephraim was furious, and he threatened to burn them down, which I still don't understand that. Like, okay, first you want to join them in war, but then, like, okay, now you want to fight against them because they didn't call you? Like, that seems kind of dumb. But later on, I'll explain why. We broke out, so war broke out between Ephraim and the Gileadites. And what really kind of started it was when Ephraim called them fugitives of Ephraim and Manasseh. So that kind of just ticked them off, and boom, war broke out. We see Japheth was victorious over Ephraim, and he took control over a section where it was called the Jordans up here. What was that thing called?
Ford.
Yeah, the Jordan's Ford. Yeah, so that's what it was called. He took over that. Yeah, so it was a section where fugitives, if they wanted to cross over, so remember the Gileadites had control of that. So anytime any of the fugitives from Ephraim wanted to cross over, they kind of, they would ask, "Are you from Ephraim?" But to really test them, they would make them say that word, Shibboleth. But obviously they couldn't say it because they just couldn't. The people of Ephraim could not say that word correctly. So that's how they knew. They would eventually kill them. And about 42,000 people from the tribe of Ephraim were killed around that time. And then we see that Japheth judged Israel for 6 years. So here's a little background information. So even as far back as Judges 8, we see Ephraim tends to be contagious people. Another possible reason for the dispute with Japheth could be land dispute and of the conquered Ammonites. Because remember, the battle was on their side. Even though it didn't belong to Ephraim, but one of the reasons it was saying that they wanted to get some of that land for them. So you wanted to start issues with them. But none of it belonged to Ephraim. The Ephraimites attempted to nullify any territorial claims by the Gileadites by negating their tribal status. Historically, Gilead was one of the clans from the tribe of Manasseh. by identifying them as a mixed stock. Remember, they called them fugitives between Ephraim and Manasseh. They were classifying them as squatters on the land with no rights to territory as full-fledged clans and tribes would have had. This was a land grabbed by the Ephraimites. So more than likely, I think that was the reason why they made a big deal out of it. The Gileadites chose the word Shibboleth not because of any significant inherited in the meaning, but it exposed the inability of the Ephraimites to pronounce it. Okay, verses 8 to 10, Ibzan judges Israel. So that Ibzan of Bethlehem, which is not the Bethlehem that we're thinking of.
Okay.
It's actually there's another Bethlehem on the Zebulun side, which is higher. Judges Israel after them. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters whom he gave in marriage outside the family, and he brought in 30 daughters from outside of his sons, and he judged Israel for 7 days. Then Ibzan died, and he was buried in Bethlehem. So Ibzan was the next judge to rise up from Bethlehem. He had 30 sons and daughters who he allowed them to marry outside of their clan. And then he had their sons married outside too. So he judges Israel for 7 years, and he dies. That's all it really says about him. So Bethlehem here is generally considered to be not the one in Judah, a few miles south of Jerusalem, but one in the territory of Zebulun. So, come on. So remember, we look at we don't really think of the Bethlehem like somewhere down here, but it was somewhere. Actually, there was a Bethlehem here in Zebulun, somewhere up here. So that's what he was talking about, right? Zebulun in the hills of Galilee, just north of the valley of Jezreel, and it was in the border between the Asher and Zebulun. So the wives of an ancient ruler or his children usually represented political alliances, towns, city-states, tribes, or nations who wished to ally themselves with a ruler or come under his protection, sealed the treaty with the marriage of a daughter of their chief family to the suzerain and his son. This was an act of loyalty on the part of the vassal, who would then have a personal stake in preserving the dynasty. The large number of sons indicated the strength of the family line, for with that many it would be assured of not dying out. This would be important for a ruler because the family usually occupied key positions in the administration. A large family would theoretically be able to secure the future of the dynasty. Verses 9 indicates a vast web of political associations. So remember, even in the past few chapters, they had a lot of sons, a lot of daughters. It was all really for a political alliance type of thing that was generally went down at that time of history. Verses 11 to 12, then Elon the Zebulite judged Israel after him, and he judged Israel 10 years. And Elon and the Zebulite died, and he was buried at Ajalon in the land of Zebulun. So the next judge rise up was Elon from the tribe of Zebulun, and he judged Israel for 10 years, and that's pretty much all it said about him. And the final judge was Abdon, verses 13 to 15. That Abdon, the son of Hillel, a Parathonite, judged Israel after him, and he had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys, and he judged Israel for 8 years. More of that political alliance type of thing. Then Abdon and the son of Hillel, the Parathite, died and was buried at Pirathon in the land of Ephraim, in the hill country of the Amalekites. So we see that the final judge was Abdon, 40 sons, 30 grandsons, judged Israel for 8 years. So, real quote I got, this was evidence of their royal type power over the region, but Abdon extended the control to another generation. That's what he was saying, because he mentioned the 30 grandsons, so it extended it. That's what it was mentioned. So some of the practical application questions. So it seemed to me, at first anyways, it seemed like there was just a miscommunication, because remember, Ephraim has said you guys didn't call us out for help. And
Hmm.
Jephthah said, no, we did call you guys out, but you didn't come to help. So obviously there was a lack of communication. That it could have been the whole land thing, but just reading it kind of seems like there was lack of communication. So I'm sure because you're married and I've had plenty of relationships, failed relationships. We know that communication is key in really any type of relationship, but I mean,
Sure.
obviously with our spouses and stuff like that is very key. Um, so you've been married. How would you? Where would you rate the importance of a communication in a marriage, staying together? It's like the most important thing, top two, top three. Like where would you put communication?
Oh, I've always heard that is, the saying is communication is key. Um, if you're, it's, I mean, humans, we have different ways of communicating.
Yes.
There's what, we're texting on the phones and stuff, or we're talking like this or in person, and there's body language. There's, verbal communication, writing, different types of communication. It's, I would say it's very important to be genuine and sincere, especially in romantic relationships. And, or there's a lot of instruction in the Bible that talks about, being open and honest, especially with brothers and fellow members of the faith,
Yeah.
that we're supposed to be. Uh, so it Before I was saved, living a life outside of Christ, I would think, that I'm smart enough to hide things and get away with things. But
Mhm.
once you're living a life like that and you're just entangled in all of the lies and stuff, it's hard to remember each one. So that is not a good place to be, and
Uh,
you got, it's just craziness. So
okay. So, would you? Oh, maybe that was part of the next question. How? Uh, let's focus on marriage. How well would you say are you a communicator with your wife? That's number one. Number two, how well would you say you are as a communicator in general? In what areas do you think you can improve upon? So I'll actually go first. So when I was in relationships, I always felt that I was a good communicator because I like to talk. But I also learned that men and women are a little bit different in how they communicate and or how they understand certain things. So
sure.
I used to get into a lot of fights because I never understood that sometimes the way, like I could probably talk to you a certain way, you get me really easily. But if I talk to a woman or someone I was dating or whatever, for some reason, if something happens where it doesn't click with them, and then
Mm,
they don't understand what I'm trying to say, and then cause big problems. So in relationships, for whatever reason, it seems like I'm not a good communicator because it always has problems. But like in business or just with people in general, I never really have issues like that. We generally are able to talk cool, understand each other, and I can't say that I generally have problems with people, but it's something in my relationships where it just doesn't seem to work. And even now, I kind of see sometimes some of the mistakes I made in the past. I can see it, but then I just don't understand like how else am I supposed to do it? Like I am the way I am. I talk a certain way. I express myself a certain way,
yeah.
but it just doesn't seem to click with a partner. So I think, like the second part here, where it says, "What areas could I improve upon?" So one of my biggest problems, I think a lot of people too, is I get furious when I get interrupted.
Yeah.
That really gets me mad. Now, but at the same time, kind of hypocritical in my this is relationships, not like regular. In a relationship, I can't stay quiet. I can't just be quiet and listen. That used to be my problem, and kind of still is, because the thing is, when I was in I had a girlfriend, and she would start to bash me or say things about me that I disagreed, I
Mhm.
get very defensive. Like, no, that's not true, and no. So I couldn't just be quiet and let her say everything she had to say. Like as soon as I heard something that was negative about me, and
Yeah.
especially if it was untrue, bro, I will get like a fire will light inside of me. Like I had to defend myself. So I get very
Sure.
defensive. I don't mind if I'm wrong, bro. I think most of the time, if I'm wrong, as long as you come at me with respect, I can just be like, damn, you're right. Sorry. I didn't understand. But once the problem is in a relationship, when you're arguing and they start yelling at you, even if they say something that's true, you get defensive and you get naturally angry. So that's an area I know I need to work on. But as far as like a relationship, bro, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not really sure on that one because I've had many failed relationships and communication always seems to be a problem. So obviously that's
Yeah.
something I would have to seek more counsel on. Or I have a couple books on communication and stuff, but man, that's a big. It's hard for me. Hard for me. But
Yeah.
your experience, especially primarily, I want to hear about in marriage. How would you say you are as a communicator, and is there anything you could improve upon?
Well, sure. There's always room for improvement in everything. Um, with regards to communicating it with different people, it would be, I think, what you were touching on before, where you're talking about like with people with work or friends, people can understand you, you understand them,
Yeah,
you guys get along. Um, that's generally, how I think life works out for me too, is that with people at work and friends and stuff, we're kind of, more goal oriented and focused,
yeah,
what we're trying to accomplish together, that kind of thing. So there's not really like a lot of emotion
right.
involved. It's really more just like intelligence and using your physical ability to get things done, that kind of stuff. But when you're in you know a romantic relationship, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah,
It's
it seems like
you
it.
know, you're thinking about like, especially if you're married or if you're in a relationship where like, you're if you see it on Instagram and stuff all the time, people are teasing their partners about like, well, I want to go to this place for dinner. Well, I want to go to this place for dinner. Well, how are we gonna, come to this agreement as to where we're gonna go? Does this time do you get to pick and next time I get to pick? So it's that kind of thing is where I think when we talked last week was you gotta all of us, not you, but all of us have to be more understanding and forgiving. And, we have to let our wills be bent enough to where, I love you. So yeah, I want to go to where you want to go to dinner because I love you. And then next time, let's go to where I want to go to dinner because you love me. So,
Right.
it balances out. So I think a lot of it times it has to do with how strong of a will a person has, if their life experience. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the human
Yeah,
psychology and stuff like that that I'm not an expert in. But
yeah, no, I get you. So this next one, oh man, this is me. So once we're in that fighting range, I hate to admit this, but the gloves go off. Or I say I throw the Bible out the window. Once a person pushes me to that level, bro, this Bible's out the window. And I know that's something that's really bad that I need to fix. But so the question was, when you disagree or argue with somebody, do you find yourself sometimes attacking them? Let's say you could be talking about anything and it starts to get heated where you tend to change the subject and you start attacking them personally, and getting away from the topic. And I'm notorious for that in previous relationships with with a girlfriend type thing. I'm getting attacked. Let's say we're talking about whatever, and it gets heated, bro. I can change the subject and bring up stuff that happened 2 weeks ago, or just whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it happened a lot with my ex. No excuses. That's an issue that I have. But she knew how to push my buttons. Very
Yeah.
few people know how to push my buttons to where, like, we could be talking about wanting to go eat, and I'm calling her a fake Christian because, like, just something so like ridiculous, right? Like I because in the past, so even okay, imagine, so as the Lord brought me back a couple years ago, I was getting a little nasty. Can you imagine how it was before when I didn't have him? How it got really nasty, and I was just like, oh man, that's not cool. Once I would calm down, and I'm like, man, I went way off right there. But that's a because anger has always been a problem that I had, and when the Lord saved me, it was something that He, even now, He has to continually work with me. But
Sure.
I tend to it becomes a battle. Like, you
Yeah.
know what? I have to win now. Like, I'm gonna make you look bad now. So remember 2 weeks ago? Oh yeah, well, you don't even study your Bible. What are you talking about? Woo, like, totally irrelevant, bro. Like that's also immaturity too, on my part. Um, I can't say that I've had that now because I've been single for a year and a half or two. But I
Yeah.
think I'm a little bit more mature now, a little bit stronger. So I would hope that if in the future I would not act that way, but I haven't been tested, because it's easy to say that when you haven't been tested, but that's something, man, I've always had to battle with that. I have to win. Like, I have to get the last word. I can't, I just can't let somebody beat me like that. So that's a problem that I have. Do you ever go that far, or you're able to stop? Like, how are you when your buttons are pushed? How do you find yourself going?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on um what it is, like what the subject is, or um yeah. No, so nobody's like done anything to physically harm anybody, that's close to me. So I
Mhm.
don't know how I would respond if something like that happened. Just like in everyday like life, there's differences that come up, like at work. So I kind of just state my perspective, and then I try to hear other people's rationale and their understanding and their perspective, and then we try to come to some sort of agreement. But um, getting, I think once the Lord saved me, because I used to get in some pretty heated political debates at work with a guy who was a liberal and I was a conservative. So we would go at it. But he retired, and then COVID happened. And then I got, on home telework assignments. So I've, I think the Lord has been working on me in that. And I honestly, looking at you and hearing your story, I think he's using this phase right now as, bringing awareness to that issue that you're talking about. And really, that's what we can do, is that we can be aware of how we respond in those situations. And then if something does happen like that, and the fuse is kind of short that day or something, we can know at that point if something starts to escalate, to how to de-escalate it, or how to get out of um that that conversation for a while. Like, you have your gym right there at your
Yeah,
house, right? You
yeah,
can go, work it out for a little while and say,
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna go think about it, I'm gonna come back, and then we can
yeah.
cooler heads prevail. But I don't think that I would say, I guess, with my kids, whenever they don't respond, like if they're really being real opposed to, like, we have to get ready to go to karate, and if they're not doing it whenever it's time to get going, I can start to get a little frustrated and
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like that.
kids, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't that, it's always there. It's inside of us as
Yeah.
men. It's just trying to, self-control it.
All right. All right. Switching gears. Um, talking about dating. Because the last section was talking about wives and marriage and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I kind of brought up this question. So I put, do you think that the way how we currently look for a husband or a wife, is that the biblical way of doing it, or would the Old Testament way of marriage yield better results than how we do it nowadays? Yes, there was divorce and there was all kinds of stuff back then too. But are we in modern times, are we better off than them? Or is that arranged marriage seem to be better? Like what would you say in that area? Because I mean now, I mean really, I can't really think of anything in the Bible that gives you, with the exception of the don't be with an unbeliever. I don't, I don't see anything about dating and getting to know someone. It's just, hey, find a wife and be a good husband and boom, 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 boom. It doesn't. I don't see anyways any guidelines of, hey, when you're dating someone, do this, look for that. I don't see that. So, what do you think? Where like the way we normally do it now is they have apps. You can find someone on Facebook, Instagram, versus the old school way of, oh, hey, son, see right there, that's your wife. Take her as your wife.
Mhm.
Like, what do you think would be, in your opinion, which way is better, or what can the modern Christians do? Because even in the church, divorce is very high.
Yeah.
I heard of so many scandals and stuff, and it's like, wow, these are
Yeah. Well,
believers.
we're still sinners, it's
Yeah,
still, I would say that what we were reading in Judges 12 was was a different matter. Like, like you read about the political
yeah,
reasons as to why, um, most of those families were, and I'm not against the patriarchy, but they were mostly, patriarchy set up, and they were marrying between families for political alliances
yeah.
and stuff like that. Today, there might be some of that going on in certain Christian circles, but I think for the most part, it's, in America's a free country. And I know I'm just kind of focused on the West here. I'm not sure how it is globally, but in America, Christians, they grow up and they go to church together. And, it's kind of, you have the physical attraction part, you have personality, character traits, you're looking at, and hopefully your parents and your friends are saying, you guys are really good together. You kind of just your friend groups and stuff, they kind of say, yeah, we could see you guys really, making a good run at it, something like that. But I don't really know if there's too much of this political alliance, like power family kind of stuff. I don't see
I
how
mean,
in
yeah, yeah,
New
yeah,
Testament that we should be engaging in any of that.
yeah. Yeah.
But for the divorce rate, is
Okay,
there any
hold on, real quick.
statistic?
That's the next one.
Yeah.
So, divorce in Christian marriages are very high, just like the unbelievers. So, what do you think is a problem? Obviously, outside of that, we're all sinners. We get that, but just something's not right when the church is divorcing almost at the same rate as the non-believers. Like, something has to be done. Like, what can be fixed? Because the world has a view of marriage like, oh well, it didn't work out. We'll find another husband, another wife, and boo, 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 boo. Where we know the Bible teaches us a covenant, and God hates divorce, and all that stuff. But yet Christians are still doing it like nothing. So obviously there's a problem.
Yeah.
In I you know what? It's sad to say I don't know too many uh Christian marriages that are still together and they're happy. They may be, you can be together with somebody for 20 years but hate their guts, but that doesn't mean,
Sure. Yeah.
So do you think that Christians are just are don't understand what marriage is, or they just don't really care what God thinks about what marriage is, or they're just, I mean, I don't know, I don't,
Yeah.
I,
It's well, yeah. This one's a hard one, I think, to go like big picture, broad strokes on
yeah,
because there's so much that can go wrong in relationships, and that how people can do each other wrong. It's honestly, where my mind went off the bat was I think there's too much of the world in the church,
right, yeah,
and I think too, too many of us are more concerned with our own, when we're hurt, our own feelings, our own pride, our own self-love, the
yeah,
stuff that the Bible teaches all against.
yeah,
I just think that we're too, we just listen, it, we have just so much information coming at us in the world all the time. And if we're listening to more of that than we are of like sermons and reading the Bible and being around other Christians and hearing the biblical perspective, uh, I think that could be part of
so,
it.
so you're saying worldly ideologies are creeping up in the church, confusing, maybe not only we want to say confusing people, or the church is just listening more to what the world has to say instead of saying, no, what does God say? What does we, because it seems like they're trying to find any excuse to leave. From
Yeah,
and because that's what the world does. Okay, you're not. Hey, if you're not happy, just leave.
yeah,
That's not what the Bible teaches.
no, no,
So yeah, it could be a lot of worldly ideology, sin, selfishness, all that stuff, and realistically, I think they just don't know, or if they do know, just don't care what what God says about marriage, because I want to do what I want to do because I'm selfish. If I'm not happy, I'm gonna leave.
right.
And that I don't see nowhere in scripture where it says you can leave because you're not happy.
Right.
So yeah. Next one. What principles can we take from the Bible to help us become better communicators?
Well, Proverbs is really good. Listening, um, seeking understanding, studying. Um, Communication, it's a lot of it is actually listening to the other person, and especially in romantic
Yeah.
relationships, it's and this is certainly an area of improvement that I need to have in my life is that just sitting there and just looking at the other, your spouse or your girlfriend and just listening and taking in so that, they can be seen and heard for what they're feeling and experiencing. And at the same time, still being aware of biblical truth,
Yeah.
and making sure that as the spiritual leader of the household, that we're still applying biblical principles in those communications and understanding the truth. And if the spouse or girlfriend is being misled by lies and because there's a lot of them out there,
Oh yeah, definitely.
that we still have to be able to use the biblical truth in a loving way to say this is where the Bible is at on this. So yeah, it's patience, it's all that, it's listening, there's a lot there.
Last one. What principles from the Bible can
Hmm.
we take to help us choose better partners and or future spouses? Obviously the first thing I would go to is the first thing, don't be unequally yoked with an unbeliever. Obviously, if you're a believer, don't go out there marrying an unbeliever. Um, I also found that even within denominations, even though I don't think that's unequally yoked, So at the time, I was going through a Reformed Baptist church. I was diehard 1689, and
Okay.
she was a Calvary Chapel, Dispy,
Mm.
tickling my ear, feel good type of church. Bro, it was like two different religions. It
Yeah.
was battling left and right, and um, but we were both Christian. Well, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. We were both Christians, but man, it's just like a Baptist and a Presbyterian, that'd be very difficult, or a Pentecostal and a Catholic, that'd be pretty difficult. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah.
but so first you want to find a strong, godly woman, but now with just so many denominations, bro, it's man, it's difficult. Cause I couldn't honestly, I could maybe handle a reform girl who's at least teachable, but it'd be very hard for me to handle one of those like dispensational, feel good type of denomination female Christians. That they're just so much on their emotions and feelings, and uh,
Yeah.
it would be too hard. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I have the patience for that. At least with a reform girl, we can who somewhat knows her scripture, we can sit down together. All right, honey, look, we're gonna talk about the law. Look, let's sit together, let's read, let's study, woo, woo, woo. Where I don't think
Yeah.
I could do that with this big girl. Um, so that I would say, you know, so the year and a half or two, whatever that I've been single, I I went out on a lot of one-time dates. I'm not. That sounds bad, but on a
Huh.
one-time date,
Yeah. Yeah.
I found that a lot of people throw that. Oh yeah, I'm a Christian. They'll say it like nothing. They wear the hat. I'm a Christian,
Mm.
but they're really not. Or they're fruit, or I don't know, bro. Like a lot of these dates that I went on, oh, they tell you, oh, I want a godly man, I want this, woo, 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 right? Okay, yeah, of course, that's what you want. But then when I sat there to try to really get to know them and see what they're gonna offer, bro, I was like, you don't even read the Bible, you have no concept of what a biblical wife is. And now it's not just for me anyway. I mean, you're out of the game, but for me, like I can't just date someone who professes to be a Christian. Like they I don't know, like I think for me anyways, I need a girl, which is very difficult to find, who really likes to study her word, a theological girl, which is why I say I would be better off with a reform girl, because most of the reform folks that I've met,
Yeah.
the women are a little bit, they study a little bit more. We may
Mm.
disagree on doctrine, but at least they put in that effort. They know who some of these theologians are. Whereas in the Dispy church, no, none of that. So at least for me, bro, I would need a strong intellectual girl, because that's how I am, and I just can't. I don't see how it would work with somebody who's the opposite. I don't know.
Right.
It's just been tough, man. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
that's
I
why
mean,
I threw in the towel. I threw in the towel a while ago. I said, you know what? Once I started seminary, I was like, you know what? This is not. God doesn't want me with anyone right now. He wants me to focus on other things, and like I told you, I still have issues that I need to work on. I'm not ready to be a husband, and so maybe that's why I need this couple of years to God to really refine me and change me. But I'm looking at it. You know what? I need a strong, godly woman, not
yeah.
just someone who says, "Hey, I'm a Christian." Oh, like you, or one who walks the walk, talks the talk, really studies her Bible, who will know, like, okay, he is the leader. I must submit. I must, their role and all that good stuff. Where I can have, like, I couldn't have these conversations about theology or none of this stuff with none of the girls that I dated, bro. It would have never worked. I couldn't discuss none of this stuff. I remember I would try to teach her some stuff. I
Yeah.
don't want to hear that. Oh man, it was frustrating, man.
Mm.
So
Yeah, there's churches around that, whenever you just got to kind of put the feelers out there. You got to let people know that you're kind of, looking for a theological, lady that is not, real on the emotional side and stuff. And
Right.
people know people, and they say,
Yeah.
yeah, Brother Edgar, he's looking for a theological lady, and oh, Sister Donna's over here or something.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, it would have to be like one of the reform girls.
Yeah.
A few sisters that uh the few sisters that I know that are theologically sound, I'm like, wow, this is awesome. They're all like already married. I'm like, man, okay, so they do exist.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, okay, so it gives me hope.
Yeah.
You hear a woman talk like that, I'm like, okay, gives me hope. They do exist.
Yeah.
So um
There's a lot of women that are very theological. I see them on Instagram. I see them on
yeah, me
YouTube.
too,
They're very intelligent. They study their word and they know, all the points and stuff. So
around
they're
here.
out there.
So yeah, it's the thing with dating. I mean, Bible doesn't give too much principles on dating, so it gets a little.
Oh, the dating world is hard, bro.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
I remember that. It is rough.
yeah, oh man. Even like now, bro, I barely have any time, man. Doug always, I mean, Doug, look, I gotta read 5, 6 chapters, and I got 2 papers to write by next week. Ah, man, I'm like, how in the world would I make any time for someone right now having to? But if I had a strong, godly, theological woman,
Yeah, should be helping you out.
a woman to help you out, or worst case scenario, I'll give you your time and space because I understand it's important. Where anybody in the past, oh, you're always so busy, and man, oh my god, it would have never worked.
Yeah.
But so right now, I just throw it in the towel, man. I'm not worried about it. I'm just, if God has someone for me on His time, I just going to search for myself. I get discouraged and I get angry, and I'm just like, forget it. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's understandable.
yeah, okay. And the last part, I didn't really see no direct or indirect connection to Christ. I've already said it, the same thing pretty much the last couple of weeks. What the judges represent, but other than that, I didn't see nothing extra, something new that I could have added that I hadn't already said. So
Okay.
the next few chapters should be good because now Samson. So that's some good stories right there.
Yeah.
That one. So all right, brother. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank you. It was a good
Willing.
lesson.
See you next week. All right.
All right.
All right, brother. God bless. Bye.